One of the most fascinating aspects of Dalek history is the stories of the Dalek props themselves, as there are a huge range of different props that have been used to depict Daleks in Doctor Who over the years. Some were only used once, some were used many times over, but all of them have interesting details about them. In this video we are going to be looking at 10 interesting behind the scenes facts about Dalek props in Doctor Who. Number 1. Special Weapons Daleks in New Who. Special Weapons Daleks appear in 2 episodes of New Who, Asylum of the Daleks and The Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar. They don't do very much in either of these stories, but their appearances are nonetheless notable for the use of props. The one used in Asylum of the Daleks is actually the same prop used for Remembrance of the Daleks in 1988, but this unfortunately meant that it could not be used as a moving Dalek and had to remain catatonic. The Special Weapons Dalek seen in Series 9 was a brand new prop, allowing it to move around and be fitted with lights. Number 2. Renegade Dalek props were originally built as Necros Daleks. The filming of Remembrance of the Daleks required a large number of Dalek props, not only to depict the warring forces of 2 opposing Dalek factions, but also to be used for SFX shots and specialist variants like the Emperor and Special Weapons Dalek. As such, several older Dalek props from previous episodes were reused and repainted to create the Renegade Dalek faction. These include 2 veteran Dalek props used throughout Classic Who, as well as all 4 Necros Dalek props. 3 were repainted as grey drones, and 1 was modified with additional parts and repainted to create the Supreme. The Imperial Daleks were depicted using brand new props. Number 3. The Sorcer Commander Dalek being an unfinished prop. In the Dalek invasion of Earth, the Daleks are initially led by a Sorcer Commander, identified by its distinctive alternating black and silver panels and black dome. However, this design was created entirely by accident. The Supreme Dalek was not referred to by name in the script until Part 5, but the production team quickly realised that the Dalek leader needed to be distinguishable from the drones, so a hasty paint job was applied to one of the props that was not finished by the time filming began. So, in the first 2 episodes and the first scene of episode 3, the Daleks are led by a Sorcer Commander, then it promptly disappears, being replaced by a Supreme Dalek from episode 3 onwards. Number 4. The unused props of Series 9. For the filming of Series 9's The Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar, many Dalek props were assembled to depict the Daleks in the control room on Skaro, including several props based on designs from Classic Who. However, not all of the Daleks that were brought to the set of this episode were used for filming, as behind-the-scenes photos reveal that there were actually several Paradigm Daleks present on set that were deliberately omitted from the lineup, as well as a prop resembling one of the Daleks from the second Peter Cushing Dalek movie, aside from the dome lights which were smaller like Classic Who Daleks. For some reason, perhaps due to concerns over copyright, this Dalek prop was not used. Number 5. The Special Weapons Dalek originally being a floating gun platform. In the initial script for Remembrance of the Daleks, the Special Weapons Dalek was not present, and the Daleks instead used a floating weapons platform fitted with a huge gun, which would serve as a mobile weapon of destruction manned by several Daleks. However, this idea had to be scaled back in order to fit the budget, so the idea of mounting a huge gun on a Dalek skirt was agreed on instead, and thus the iconic Special Weapons Dalek was born. Number 6. Series 9's mismatched Dalek prop. In the Series 9 episode The Witch's Familiar, a variant of original Dalek design featuring a black dome can briefly be seen when the Daleks corner Missy. This is the first time that this specific design of Dalek has ever been seen, because the prop was actually mismatched at the time. The black dome of an Emperor's Guard Dalek had been placed on the body of an original standard Dalek with no midsection slats, creating a new variant of Dalek specifically for this scene. It is unknown whether or not this was done on purpose, but it makes for a great idea for an easy custom figure paint job. Number 7. The Red Top Dalek. Speaking of mismatched Daleks, Terry Nation owned his own collection of Dalek props, several of which were, over time, mismatched due to various parts being swapped around and then painted over. One of the props that originated from the Peter Cushing Dalek movies ended up with a silver and blue drone body but a red dome, as well as mismatched dome lights. This particular design is notable because it was featured in published photographs of Terry Nation, and as such, several pieces of Dalek merchandise were created that featured this red top design, as a sort of second-in-command Dalek, despite the fact that it had never actually appeared in any televised story. Number 8. The 2 Dalek Emperor props. The Dalek Emperor from The Parting of the Ways was depicted using 2 props, a miniature for the Emperor's casing, and a different mutant prop suspended in water for the close-up shots of the Emperor itself. You can actually see the distinction between these 2 props, as in the wide shots of the Emperor, the mutant looks slightly different to the close-up shots. The use of an animatronic prop in water destroyed the Emperor mutant prop during filming, meaning it could not be used again, which is a shame because it is one of the most visceral depictions of a Dalek mutant to date. Number 9. Remembrance of the Daleks originally had red Daleks versus blue Daleks. Very early drafts for Remembrance of the Daleks had several ideas that were not present in the final story. such as the previously mentioned weapons platform and also the revelation that Daleks can shoot round corners. Another interesting early idea was the notion that the two opposing Dalek factions would be depicted using red Daleks and blue Daleks. But this was ultimately changed before production began, as the factions later became the grey Renegade Daleks and the white and gold Imperial Daleks. In expanded media, red Daleks and blue Daleks feature as specific ranks within the Dalek hierarchy, similar to black Daleks and gold Daleks. And number 10. Dalek 1-7. Speaking of Remembrance of the Daleks, one of the props used to depict a Renegade Dalek in that story was, as previously mentioned, a TV veteran, with some of its components dating all the way back to the very first Dalek story. This Dalek is referred to as Dalek 1-7, as it is made up of the top half of the first Dalek prop made, and the lower half of the 7th Dalek prop made. Dalek 1 was created for use in the Daleks, all the way back in 1963, and Dalek 7 was created for the chase in 1965. Both sections of each of these Daleks were mismatched with parts of other props and used throughout the early 70s, until Dalek 1-7 was formed during production of Death to the Daleks. The prop remained in this configuration for the rest of Classic Who's production, appearing in Genesis of the Daleks, Resurrection of the Daleks, Revelation of the Daleks, and finally in Remembrance of the Daleks. And that concludes this list of 10 interesting Dalek facts from Doctor Who's behind-the-scenes history. Big thanks to Dalek 6388, the source of much of this information. Dalek fans who want to know more about the history of the prop should definitely check that site out, as it's fantastic. Do you know any other interesting behind-the-scenes Dalek facts? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.